Thank you so much, Jeanette. Because I sign your paychecks, I know you said all those nice things just because you will still get another one next week. Ladies and gentlemen, Premier Notley, distinguished guests, honored recipients this evening, I am so incredibly and profoundly delighted to be here, and I stand in absolute awe of those receiving this remarkable award tonight. When I began my career some 19 years ago, it was never with the intention to be on a stage like this one. I simply wanted to do better for my community, to get involved. Then as now, I believe that a strong community in Wood Buffalo was necessary to support the growth and development of the oil sands and to help our industry attract the best and the brightest employees the world has to offer. There's no question that as the backbone of the oil sands, our community has a unique role to play in the economic success of Alberta and indeed Canada. John F. Kennedy once said that leadership and learning are indispensable to each other, and I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. And of course, I swallowed something bad before I started speaking, sorry, because I had more to say. Yes, that would be wonderful. I'm notorious about going off script. I'm going off script just a little to honor the namesake of the award, and I'm delighted that he has family members here this evening that shared some of that. So in my early days as councillor, of course, I was immersed in the really big issues, but leadership and learning and the indispensability therein. It relates back to one of these roads that exists in my community, and it's been there for a long time, a lot longer than some of the industry was. And it used to be affectionately known by the locals, don't get me the wrong way, as the Bridge to Nowhere. And it's because we had grand plans on the horizon, and they didn't come to fruition in the time frame that they were intended to. And so the first connection I, in fact, had with the Peter Lougheed and his legacy was that bridge. And it's certainly not a road to nowhere. It is a road that is absolutely vital to the development and the return that Canada has seen on that investment. It's how we get to Shell, it's how we get to Imperial, it's how I got out of the Fort McMurray wildfire. In my early days as a councillor, I was immersed in those big community issues, and there's a steep learning curve. In my first 6 months on council, the things I had to deal with, things closest to public policy, are bylaws. I had an animal control bylaw telling people how many pets they could keep in a home at the time. The non-smoking bylaw telling those non-smokers we didn't want to breathe that secondhand smoke. And in true Alberta style, a particularly controversial land use bylaw that was related to, of all things, RV parking. And in my neck of the woods, that was pretty important. That was the first 6 months. And of course, they were all great learning experiences. And while it never occurred to me at the time, they helped me to develop a foundation that prepared me for that incredible period of growth and challenges that would lay ahead for our region. As mayor, I used to think I'd seen just about everything imaginable. A growth and development boom that pushed our community to its limits and beyond, and it propelled us forward in our thinking, planning, and action. We responded to that experience by creating a progressive community visioning exercise that we called Future Forward. As we launched this initiative in 2006 with the goal of involving our residents in the creation of a community-based vision for Fort McMurray. It was asking people to stop looking down into the potholes and start looking out onto the horizon. As we asked them to do that, what we wanted to know was what they thought it should be to like to live, to work, to learn, and to play in our community 2 decades into the future, and how we'd go about meeting the challenges of growth brought on by that massive industrial expansion. The result was a community-driven framework to guide us in realizing that vision for the year 2030. And I believe it's incredibly important to serve the will of the public longer than the term of office that they will you to serve. Being at the mercy of both nature and voters, of course, as mayor, I guess you could also say that I have seen the unimaginable. And I think that the 2016 wildfire is far and away the greatest example of that. When I woke on the morning of May 3rd, 2016, I never imagined that our community was about to experience what would become the most costly wildfire in Canadian history and the second costliest wildfire in the world. Approximately 88,000 residents fled their homes that day, including myself and my family. Remarkably, everyone escaped safely, although 2 young people tragically lost their lives in an accident down the highway. When the wildfire tore through our region, it destroyed over 2,500 homes and 92 non-residential structures. The Conference Board of Canada estimates the cost of repairing both the total loss and damaged structures, $2.4 billion, and the Insurance Bureau of Canada anticipates $3.6 billion in claims. There's no real guidebook on how to navigate a crisis of this magnitude. So we write up our own lessons learned, and we hope to prevent recurrence in any future events. As such, we became very closely connected to Slave Lake, and they too have graciously helped us with the experiences so that we could build on those lessons already learned in other communities. I am pleased to say that we are a community very much in recovery, and progress is being made every day by our profoundly impacted citizens and businesses. The road is long and bumpy sometimes, but being strong and resilient means doing what we must to move forward. During the long and scary evacuation period last year, the most incredible things began to happen almost immediately. None of those were articulated in policy, public or otherwise. I won't rehash the many means of support, and many, of course, is an understatement, but I will say that Canadians in every province gave us shelter, support, and unending compassion that we can never express enough gratitude for. So thank you again to those of you here tonight who gave us help and hope in our darkest days. We recently marked that one-year anniversary of both the wildfire and the return to the community. And while we are well down the road to a successful recovery for residents, the work ahead of us will take years to complete. On the other hand, as you've heard, my career in municipal government will come to a close later this year, but it makes me no less excited and hopeful to see what lies ahead for our community. I am so deeply grateful for the rich experiences that I have had and the strong relationships built over that time. It is a true privilege and to lead this dynamic, diverse community through that time of explosive development and now transformational change. I want to sincerely thank the Public Policy Forum for this wonderful recognition, and I'm proud to accept this honor on behalf of the residents of Wood Buffalo. Thank you so much, and good evening.